Bank staff kick out Keanu Reeves, instantly regret it when the truth comes out. It was a regular afternoon when Keanu Reeves decided to visit a local bank in Los Angeles. He was dressed casually, blending into the crowd, not drawing attention to himself. Keanu had always enjoyed living a private life despite his celebrity status. He valued his anonymity and tried to avoid making a scene wherever he went. On this particular day, he had a simple task: make a deposit and take care of some personal business. Little did he know, this seemingly routine visit would turn into a moment that would leave both him and the bank staff stunned. As Keanu entered the bank, he noticed the usual hustle and bustle of the place. People in line, a few employees chatting, and the soft hum of the ATMs in the background. He stood in line, waiting for his turn, just like any other customer. However, a few moments into his wait, an employee approached him. "Excuse me, sir," the bank staff member said, looking him up and down. "Are you here to open an account or make a deposit?" Keanu, ever polite, smiled and nodded. "Yes, just making a deposit," he replied calmly. The employee, still scrutinizing him, raised an eyebrow. "I'm afraid you'll need to wait in line. We don't allow people to just skip ahead even if you're, well, famous." Keanu paused, surprised by the bluntness of the comment. He had encountered the occasional awkward moment because of his fame, but never had he been treated with such dismissiveness. The bank employee's tone was condescending, and it was clear that they didn't recognize Keanu for who he was. Still, Keanu didn't want to make a fuss. He simply nodded and moved to the back of the line, accepting the situation without any hesitation. But the employee wasn't done. As Keanu stepped back into line, the staff member continued to eye him suspiciously. The employee whispered something to a colleague, pointing in Keanu's direction. Keanu couldn't hear the exact words, but it was clear that they were making assumptions based on his appearance and demeanor. The employee, perhaps not realizing who Keanu was, made a snap judgment about him. "I'm sorry, sir, but you'll have to leave the bank if you're not a customer," the employee said coldly, her tone now more forceful. "We can't have people just standing around without a valid reason." Keanu stood still for a moment, processing what had just happened. The situation was escalating quickly. The other employees were starting to notice, and a few customers in line had turned their attention to the scene. Keanu, ever composed, took a deep breath. He didn't want to cause a scene, but he also knew that he wasn't going to be treated unfairly. "I'm sorry, but I'm actually just here to make a deposit," he said again, his voice calm but firm. "Is there a problem?" The employee, now growing impatient, pointed toward the door. "I'm afraid you'll need to leave, or I'll have to call security." Keanu, who had always been a model of grace under pressure, turned to leave. But as he did, he couldn't help but notice the stares from the other customers. There were a few murmurs in the background, but no one stepped forward to defend him. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know that this was Keanu Reeves, the actor who had spent his career being known for his kindness, generosity, and humility. At that moment, he felt the sting of being judged without being known. But what the bank staff didn't realize was that this was far from the end of the story. Keanu wasn't just going to walk away quietly. There was more to this encounter than they could have ever anticipated. As Keanu stepped out of the bank, he couldn't help but wonder what had led the employee to treat him that way. But he wasn't angry. Instead, he was determined. This situation, though uncomfortable, was about to take an unexpected turn, and the bank staff was about to learn a valuable lesson in humility and the importance of treating others with respect. As Keanu stepped outside, the cool air hit his face, a refreshing contrast to the heated exchange inside the bank. He took a moment to collect his thoughts. The experience had been frustrating but not surprising. People often judged him based on his appearance, not recognizing the person behind the fame. Yet as he stood there, a thought crossed his mind that made him hesitate. What if this incident could be turned into something positive? What if he could make a difference with a simple act of kindness? He knew that he wasn't just any regular person. His status gave him a unique platform to change the narrative. He had experienced the sting of judgment before, but this time, it felt different. The bank employee's dismissive attitude had struck a nerve. Keanu decided that this wasn't going to be the end of the story. He would return to the bank, but not for a confrontation. No, he would return to show them who he truly was. A few minutes later, Keanu walked back into the same bank, a plan forming in his mind. The same employee who had kicked him out was at the counter, busy with another customer. She looked up briefly, not recognizing Keanu at first. He made his way to the desk where she was working, his steps calm and deliberate. When she saw him, her face changed in an instant. She instantly recognized him now, and her eyes widened with shock. I'm sorry, sir," she stammered. "I didn't realize who you were earlier. Please let me make it up to you." Keanu smiled gently, shaking his head. "There's no need for apologies," he said quietly. "I'm not here to make a scene. I just wanted to talk." The employee, now embarrassed and flustered, tried to explain herself, but Keanu stopped her with a raised hand. "I know what it's like to be judged, to be dismissed based on appearance," he said softly. "But I want you to understand that there's always more than meets the eye. I was just here to do what everyone else does, take care of my business." The employee stood frozen for a moment, processing his words. Keanu continued, "You didn't know me, and that's okay. But I want you to remember that everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. I'm no different from anyone else." A few moments of silence passed before the employee finally spoke. "I'm truly sorry for what happened," she said, her voice sincere. "I never should have treated you that way." Keanu nodded, his smile warm. "It's all right," he replied. "It's important to learn from our mistakes." As the employee apologized again, Keanu turned to leave, but not without a final word. "Treat everyone with kindness and you'll never go wrong," he said, his voice calm but filled with wisdom. The employee stood there, stunned. She realized that Keanu wasn't just teaching her about kindness. He was showing her how to be better, how to recognize the humanity in everyone she met. Keanu Reeves had not only diffused a tense situation, but he had also turned it into an opportunity for growth and understanding. His actions were a testament to the fact that kindness could turn any negative moment into a chance for learning and improvement. As Keanu left the bank once again, he felt a sense of peace. It wasn't about proving a point or making anyone feel small. It was about showing others the importance of treating everyone with dignity. And though the encounter had started with tension, it had ended with something much more valuable, a lesson in compassion that would resonate far beyond the walls of the bank. A few days later, the bank staff were still talking about the incident. The employee who had initially dismissed Keanu Reeves had been left reflecting deeply on the encounter. She had never imagined that someone like Keanu, who could have easily made a scene or demanded special treatment, would instead approach the situation with such grace and understanding. Her colleagues who had witnessed the exchange were equally struck by the calm and wisdom he had displayed. Word of the encounter soon spread beyond the bank, reaching local news outlets. A story about a celebrity being treated unfairly by a bank employee was an easy headline. However, the story that emerged was much more profound than anyone expected. Keanu's actions had sparked conversations about kindness, humility, and the importance of seeing the person beyond the surface. People who had heard about the incident began to share their own stories of being judged based on their appearance or background. It was clear that the experience had resonated with many, and Keanu's simple but powerful message of respect had started to have a ripple effect. The bank, too, took notice of the situation. The management team, realizing the importance of what had happened, decided to use it as a teaching moment for all their staff. They organized a series of training sessions focused on empathy, customer service, and understanding the diverse backgrounds of their clients. It wasn't just about improving customer service. It was about creating a culture of respect and inclusivity within the workplace. The employee who had been involved in the incident was also given the opportunity to learn and grow from the experience. She attended workshops on empathy and cultural awareness, eager to better understand the impact of her actions. Keanu's visit had been the catalyst for these positive changes, and although he had no idea the full extent of his influence, it became clear that his message was resonating deeply with the people involved. As the weeks went by, the incident continued to linger in the minds of those who had witnessed it. For many, Keanu had become a symbol of kindness in a world that sometimes seemed to be losing sight of the importance of human connection. And, while Keanu may have simply been looking to make a deposit, he had unknowingly sparked a movement that would have lasting effects on the way people treated each other. Keanu's quiet act of wisdom had set in motion a series of events that no one could have predicted. It wasn't just a lesson for one employee. It was a reminder for everyone to slow down, to recognize the humanity in others, and to treat people with kindness, no matter their background or appearance. As time passed, the story of Keanu's encounter at the bank continued to circulate. The incident had left a lasting impression, not just on the bank staff, but on the wider community. People who had heard about it began to reflect on their own behavior toward others, especially those they didn't know. Keanu had unintentionally started a wave of introspection, one that encouraged individuals to reconsider how they treated others in everyday situations. Meanwhile, Keanu's life carried on as usual. He was still the humble, down-to-earth actor people admired, continuing with his work in the film industry, but he hadn't forgotten about the bank incident. He couldn't help but wonder how things had changed since that day. He was curious whether the bank staff had followed through with the lessons of kindness and humility he had tried to instill. One afternoon, while walking through the streets of Los Angeles, Keanu decided to visit the same bank again, not to make a deposit, but to see how things had evolved. As he walked in, the staff recognized him immediately. Some of the same employees, who had been there during his first visit, were now standing at their stations. But there was something different in their demeanor. They greeted him with smiles, and there was a noticeable sense of warmth and openness in the air. Keanu approached the counter, where the same employee who had asked him to leave stood. Her face brightened when she saw him. "Mr. Reeves, it's so good to see you again," she said, her voice sincere. "I just wanted to thank you again for what you did that day. It really made an impact on all of us." Keanu nodded and smiled. "I'm glad to hear that," he replied. "I hope the lessons have stuck." The employee's face softened. "Absolutely," she said. "We've been working hard to improve. We've had several workshops on empathy and customer service. Our manager even set up a program where we engage with the community more directly, just to understand the diverse backgrounds of the people we serve. It's been a real eye-opener." Keanu listened intently, nodding in approval. "That's wonderful to hear," he said, genuinely pleased. "It's amazing how much we can learn from each other." The conversation was brief, but for Keanu, it was rewarding. What had started as a small, seemingly insignificant moment had transformed into something much larger, a shift in perspective that had made a real difference in the lives of those involved. Keanu left the bank that day feeling a sense of satisfaction, knowing that his actions had created a ripple effect that was still spreading. He didn't need recognition or thanks. He had done what he believed was right. His quiet act of kindness had touched the lives of people in a way he could never have predicted. The incident at the bank had not just changed the way the staff treated others, it had changed them as individuals. Keanu's message had resonated with them on a deep level, and they were carrying it forward in their lives. They now understood that everyone, no matter their background, deserved to be treated with kindness and respect. As Keanu continued his life, the impact of his visit to the bank remained at the forefront of the minds of the staff. They had come to understand that a single act of kindness could create a ripple that touched far more lives than they had originally realized. The ripple effect didn't stop with the employees. It spread outward as customers began to notice the shift in attitude at the bank. Many of them, having heard of the story, started to see the bank in a different light. They saw a bank that was willing to change, to learn, and to grow. Some of the customers even began to share their own stories of how they had been treated poorly, based on their appearance or background, and how a simple act of kindness had turned their day around. The bank became a symbol of transformation, a place where lessons in empathy and understanding were not just taught but practiced. The employees, once distant and indifferent, were now more engaged with their customers. They listened more intently, paid attention to the details, and treated everyone with the respect they deserved. They had learned that being kind wasn't just about offering polite words. It was about connecting with others on a human level, understanding their struggles, and offering support. For Keanu, the changes that had come about were a testament to the power of quiet influence. He had never sought to create change on a grand scale, but his actions, though small in the grand scheme of things, had sparked something much larger. He had shown the bank staff and many others the value of treating people with dignity and kindness. In the weeks that followed, Keanu continued his everyday life, the incident at the bank becoming just another story in his catalog of personal experiences. He didn't make a big deal out of it. But those who had witnessed it and been affected by it carried the lesson forward in their lives. It was a reminder that the smallest actions could lead to the greatest changes. The incident also taught Keanu something important, that the world was often more open to change than people realized, and that a single person, no matter how famous or ordinary, could make a difference in the lives of others. The power of kindness was undeniable. Keanu had learned it through his own experiences, and now he had passed it on to others in a way that would continue to echo for years to come. The lessons of that day would resonate for a long time, not just within the walls of the bank, but in the hearts and minds of those who had heard the story. Keanu Reeves had unknowingly changed the course of many lives, and all because he had chosen to approach a difficult situation with grace, patience, and understanding. Months passed, but the story of Keanu's visit to the bank continued to resonate in the community. People from all walks of life shared their own versions of the lesson they had learned from him, the importance of seeing beyond surface appearances and treating people with kindness and respect. Even those who weren't directly involved in the incident began to recognize the power of small everyday actions. The bank's management, seeing the positive transformation within their staff and the wider community, decided to take it a step further. They partnered with local organizations to sponsor community events, charity drives, and educational programs designed to promote empathy and inclusivity. These events became a platform for people to connect, share experiences, and learn how they could contribute to making their community more compassionate. The impact was felt far beyond the bank. Schools, businesses, and other institutions started to take notice of the change. They implemented their own training programs to encourage kindness, respect, and open-mindedness. Keanu's visit had sparked a cultural shift that extended far beyond the walls of a single bank. As for Keanu, he remained his humble self. He didn't make a public statement about the changes or seek recognition. For him, it was enough to know that his actions had inspired something positive. He had always believed that the world could be a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. But seeing it in action, seeing the way his simple gesture had inspired so many people, left him with a deep sense of fulfillment. In the end, it wasn't just about the incident at the bank. It was about a larger message. Kindness wasn't a gesture reserved for special moments. It was something that could and should be practiced every day by everyone. Keanu's quiet wisdom had left an indelible mark on those who had been touched by his actions. It was a reminder that the smallest things, an act of kindness, a word of encouragement, a simple smile, could change the world in ways that no one could fully measure. The story of Keanu Reeves at the bank would not only be remembered as a moment of celebrity, but as a turning point in how people interacted with one another, one small act of kindness at a time. Without Keanu's knowledge, the story of his quiet act of kindness had gained such momentum that it caught the attention of several media outlets. Journalists wanted to cover it, but the bank staff, now fiercely protective of the lesson they had learned, refused to let the story turn into a spectacle. They knew Keanu wouldn't want that. Still, the word had spread enough that people in the local community began organizing small kindness days in his honor, encouraging others to perform acts of generosity, big or small. It wasn't about putting Keanu on a pedestal. It was about honoring the principle he had embodied. During one of these community events, a mural artist, inspired by the story, painted a large piece on a public wall. The mural didn't show Keanu's face. Instead, It depicted an open hand reaching out to another hand, with the words, "Kindness starts with one," written beneath it. It quickly became a symbol for what the entire movement had come to represent. Meanwhile, Keanu, who lived life, simply and away from unnecessary spotlight, continued his routine. But one afternoon, while driving through the neighborhood where the mural had been painted, he noticed a group of people gathered around the colorful wall. Curious, he pulled over and walked towards the scene. As he got closer, he read the words and saw the images. Something about the mural touched him deeply. A young boy standing nearby noticed him and excitedly pointed, whispering to his mother. Soon, a small crowd formed around him, but not in the chaotic way that celebrities often experience. These people approached him not as a movie star, but as the man whose quiet dignity had sparked a movement of change. An elderly woman came forward, tears in her eyes. "You have no idea how much good you've done," she said, her voice trembling. "You reminded us what it means to care again." Keanu simply smiled and nodded, his heart full. "I'm just glad it made a difference," he said humbly. He stood there for a few moments longer, absorbing the energy of the people who had come not to celebrate fame but to honor kindness. Before leaving, Keanu took a quiet moment to touch the mural gently, a small private gesture of gratitude for a world that still believed in the power of goodness. As he walked back to his car, a little girl ran after him and handed him a small, handmade card that read, "Thank you for making us better." Keanu tucked the card into his jacket pocket, a soft smile on his face, and drove off, leaving behind a crowd whose lives had been touched forever. After the mural encounter, Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was calling him. He had seen firsthand how small actions could ignite real change, and he wondered how many other communities, how many small towns and overlooked neighborhoods needed just a little spark of kindness to set transformation into motion. Without any big announcement, without any camera crew following him, Keanu quietly planned a personal journey. He decided he would visit different places across the country, places where hope seemed thin, where people often forgot that kindness could still live among them. He wasn't setting out to be a hero. He simply wanted to listen, to learn, and if he could, to inspire. His first stop was a struggling town just a few hours outside Los Angeles. The local diner was the heart of the community, but even there the atmosphere was heavy, the faces tired. Keanu entered unnoticed, sat at the counter and ordered a simple cup of coffee. As he sipped, he observed how the waitress, despite her obvious exhaustion, tried to smile at every customer. An older man sitting a few stools away dropped some coins and muttered apologies as he tried to gather them. Without hesitation, Keanu knelt down to help him, picking up each coin with care and handing them back with a warm smile. The small gesture caught the attention of the entire diner. The waitress, the customers, even the cook peeking out from the kitchen, all paused for a moment, witnessing a simple act of humanity they hadn't seen in a while. Keanu didn't say much. He didn't need to. His actions spoke louder than words. As he paid for his coffee, he left a generous tip along with a handwritten note that read, "Kindness is free. Spread it." Word of his visit traveled fast in the small town, but Keanu had already moved on before anyone could make a fuss. This became his pattern. Quiet visits, small acts, no publicity. He didn't want to become the center of attention. He wanted kindness, to be the star. In each town, each city he visited, a subtle transformation began. A stranger would pay for someone's groceries. A mechanic would offer free repairs to a struggling family. A child would gather friends to clean up a local park. People realized they didn't need a celebrity to tell them to be kind. They just needed a reminder that kindness was still alive, and it could start with anyone. Keanu's journey wasn't about changing the world overnight. It was about planting seeds of hope and kindness in places where they had long been forgotten, and slowly, without fanfare or headlines, those seeds began to grow. One chilly evening, while passing through a small, windswept town near the mountains, Keanu decided to stop for the night. The town was quiet, the streets nearly empty, and most of the shops had closed early. He found a modest inn and checked in without drawing attention. As he wandered through the near-deserted main street, he noticed a boy sitting alone on a bench, shivering under a thin jacket. Something about the boy's loneliness pulled at Keanu's heart. He walked over slowly and sat down a few feet away, not wanting to startle him. After a moment of silence, Keanu softly asked, "Cold night, huh?" The boy nodded, eyes wary but curious. They sat quietly for a while, the wind whistling around them. Finally, the boy opened up, explaining that his father had recently lost his job and that they were struggling just to get by. The boy had been trying to sell handmade crafts to help, but no one had been buying. Keanu listened carefully, never interrupting. Then he pulled out his wallet and bought every single item the boy had. But instead of keeping the crafts, he gently suggested, "Let's give these away to others. Maybe they'll bring a smile to someone who needs it." Together they walked through the town, giving away the boy's crafts to surprise strangers. Each gift was met with smiles, laughter, even a few tears. People started coming out of their homes, drawn by the warmth and hope that spread through the night air. The boy's face lit up brighter than any street lamp. He wasn't just selling crafts anymore, he was spreading happiness, and for the first time in a long while he felt like he mattered. As they finished handing out the last of the crafts, the boy turned to Keanu and asked, "Why did you help me?" Keanu knelt down so he could look the boy in the eyes and said simply, "Because someone helped me once when I needed it, and I never forgot how it felt." The boy hugged Keanu tightly, a pure, grateful embrace that said everything words couldn't. Before leaving town the next morning, Keanu quietly slipped an envelope to the boy's father. Inside was enough money to help the family get back on their feet, along with a note that read, "Believe in good people, and when you can, be one." As Keanu drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the boy and his father waving, their faces filled with hope. It reminded him once again that even the smallest towns, the smallest actions could hold the biggest hearts. His journey wasn't over. There were still more towns to visit, more people to touch, more seeds of kindness to plant. And with each stop, Keanu knew the real change wasn't just happening around him. It was happening within him too. Months turned into a year, and Keanu's quiet journey of kindness continued to ripple across the country. Without ever seeking fame, without a single headline shouted by the media, a silent revolution had begun. In cities and towns that once felt heavy with sadness or distrust, people were now looking at each other differently. Smiles were shared, more freely. Help was offered without hesitation. It wasn't because someone famous had told them to do it. It was because they had felt, deep inside, the power of a simple act of humanity. Keanu found himself back in Los Angeles eventually, the place where his unexpected adventure had all started at that bank. He sat at a small cafe one evening, sipping a quiet cup of coffee, watching the world pass by. Across the street, he noticed a young man helping an elderly woman cross the road. A few moments later, he saw a teenager pick up a piece of trash and throw it away without being asked. These small moments might have once gone unnoticed, but now they were signs of a larger movement. One fueled not by loud speeches or grand gestures, but by quiet examples set again and again. Keanu smiled to himself, feeling a deep sense of peace. He hadn't set out to change the world. He had only tried to be kind in the moments when it mattered most. And somehow those moments had found their way into the hearts of countless others. As he stood up to leave, a little girl ran up to him, holding a small paper flower. She beamed up at him and said, "This is for you. Thank you for being nice." Keanu knelt down, accepted the flower with a wide, genuine smile and said, "Thank you for reminding me why kindness matters." As he walked into the fading sunset, the paper flower gently held in his hand, it was clear. The seeds he had planted had bloomed into something far bigger than he had ever imagined. They had bloomed into a garden of hope across the country, and it was still growing. And so, dear viewer, if this story touched your heart even a little, imagine what a small act of kindness from you could do for someone else today. If you want to hear more inspiring true stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss the latest stories that can brighten your day and maybe even inspire you to change the world around you.